Hey everyone, welcome back. Today is not a race recap. Today I'm going to be talking hardware and some of the recent findings that I've had, some things that I'm trying to get sorted, and some of the implications that that has on esports cycling. Now, as a bit of an intro, most of the equipment that we use at the top level of esports is supposedly verified to 1% accuracy, plus or minus. I don't think this necessarily means that they are within 1% of each other. And there are some issues with some of this stuff at the moment. So some of the trainers on this list include the Wahoo range, so Kickr 5, Kickr 6, the Elite range, Kickr Smart Bikes, and there are quite a few others as well. And then secondary sources, there are obviously many power meters out there, but I use the Faveros Aciomas, which have a really good reputation and historically have been awesome to me. Now, I'm going to talk about my current setup and why I'm on that current setup, and some of the issues that that's causing. Now, right now, I am riding on my old Scott bike and a Wahoo Kickr 6. Now, the reason I'm riding the Wahoo Kickr 6 is simply because it has an 11 speed cassette on there, which is obviously what the Scott has on it. So basically, for simplicity reasons. Now, one of the reasons I'm making this video is because I have had some horrific dual recordings lately. So, in my past couple of rides, the dual recordings have been up to 6% lower on the trainer than what my pedals are recording. Now, there are a number of things that this could be. So, this could be drivetrain inefficiency of the old bike. So, this bike is old, it's not very smooth, the dropouts are a bit clunky, so the bike doesn't necessarily sit on well, old chain, that kind of thing. Kickr 6 has recently had firmware updates. Favero Aciomas have recently had firmware updates. So all factors that could be at play here. Now, I could simply throw the cassette on either the Kickr 5 or the Justo to get a bit more data. But for one, I'm trying to save the Kickr 5 for when I get my new frame. Now, the reason I'm using the Scott is because coming home from Worlds, my frame was broken. It's been a long process. Specialized are in the process of getting me a frame via Mackay. Uh, it hasn't happened yet. I'm really keen for it to happen, so much so that I was even going to try and test the broken bike, but it looked like a snap risk waiting to happen instantly because I think that there probably is some drivetrain element of it. I'm not really keen to muck around with the cassettes, and as I said, I really love the Kickr 5. I can't wait to be back on it. It's my favorite trainer. It's historically read really well and had no issues. I don't really necessarily trust the firmware on the Kickr 6 at the moment, given some of the extreme values that I'm seeing with that device at the moment. The other thing is, I've raced on Kate's Kickr bike recently in the Restart Elite Series, which I won. Here's my dual recording from that event, which lines up almost beautifully with the Favero Aciomas calibrated to the crank length that I had there. You can see that, okay, that's a big difference compared to what the Faveros are showing. Whether that's bike issue, Kickr 6 issue, not entirely sure, but it is frustrating. When I first started using the Kickr 6, it was reading okay in comparison to the pedals. But since all the firmwares and stuff, I've done a few factory spin downs. If you don't know how to do a factory spin down, you need to tap the icon 10 times in the Wahoo app. You hear things from people saying turn virtual shifting on before you do it, or turn it off and then turn it on after. And the whole virtual shifting thing is probably a factor in itself in terms of this. But over the last few weeks, I've had a lot of issues trying to get the data to line up there. And the only data that I've had that lines up, even close, is when I tried Kickr Bike and Faveros. So I am tending towards trusting the Faveros. They've been historically really good. But as I say, there's been some firmware on them recently too. I've also had messages from both parties. So I've had a few guys see some of my jewels, and probably up to five plus people say, show me jewels on their Wahoo Kickr 6 of late that are like 5% out, and it's ruining their experience. They've got replacements and that kind of thing lately. So I've had probably five people in that camp saying that recent Kickr 6 stuff has dropped. I've also had a couple of people message me saying that their Faveros are reading over since the firmware update in comparison to their gear. So it makes it all confusing. And like the old saying, a man with two clocks doesn't know what time it really is, and that's kind of where I find myself at the moment. So basically, my motivation's at a bit of a standstill at the moment because I want to get back on my normal setup because I can feel my form is trending in the right direction, but I really don't know where to trust these numbers at the moment because, as you can imagine, my fitness is kind of week to week trending up. And if you look at the kind of the minimum, so some of these kicker values when I'm 6% down, some of the Favero values when I'm 6% down, I legitimately could fall in that range anywhere. Like it's not uncommon for me for my heart rate to sit anywhere kind of in between there, which makes it difficult because if I was at a steady kind of fitness level and all of a sudden I had a massive jump in performance or a massive dip in performance, you'd be able to say, okay, like I think this is the one that's causing the issue. But the thing is that my fitness should be trending well every week. On this current bike, I don't have enough room to push power efficiently, so my numbers probably aren't peak compared to where they can be. But everything I've seen, even if I'm using the Asiomas as the trusted source, is well within what I can do. And then when the kicker's low, it's like, am I having just a bad day? It's summer as well. We often get the hot garage, which can detract from performance a little bit. So there's all these things that are kind of making me just toss up what's right, and it's just frustrating. So how can you confidently go into a race such as like a Sunday race club if you think you're losing out X% on performance? Um, like I need those percentage um, at the best of times, let alone trying to show up against the world champion a few percent down on a worse than usual setup. So bit frustrating. And then if you're talking about community races, you've got people that have never done a dual recording in their life. They wouldn't have a clue if their equipment's calibrated or how their watts are, or they're just purposely manipulating the system. Like I jumped in a community race the other day, and I just lost motivation because just some of the people that I was racing just so untrustworthy. Heart rates like not even trying, and they're kind of matching me, no worries at all, and things like that just detract from the motivation a little bit. So it's annoying, and I'm really keen to kind of to have the nice new frame, which I'll put a picture up here in my hand, so I can get back on the Kickr 5. And I mean, I can even try the Justo at that point. Now, I could ride Kate's bike more, but the Kickr bike is notorious for having a bad seat post. Every time I jump on it, I ruin the seat for Kate a little bit more. So I'm steering clear of that because I really want her to lock in her bike fit, and that's something she's really been working on. So I don't want to tweak with that at all at the moment because I'm seeing some of the great rides she's having now. She's getting it dialed in. The other thing is like I've historically, I'm of the belief that for training for racing on Zwift and stuff, you use the smart trainer as the primary power source. It's what I've kind of been taught. It's what we've always had to do for elite racing, and that's what I've been doing. But now given that the Faveros are, possibly the ones that are the trustworthy source. Like I'm training a lot with the Faveros, and then becomes the line as to where your training data sits. Like, what's the level of Zwift event that you are happy to ride power meter on? Like, because I know there are people manipulating power meters with stupid slopes, crank lengths, and that kind of thing. Obviously I'm not, but still it comes up that I'm riding power meter. Like Tour de Zwift, they're like competitive group rides. Like I'll ride a power meter in that happily, I think. But then what's the level of serious race where like I'd actually use the source that I trust? So I rode the Flam Rouge Racing Tour Watopia classification race on the power meter and dual recorded. But I rode stage 3 on the smart trainer. Um, both of those weren't the worst duels I've ever seen, like looking at about 3%, I think. Um, the trainer was reading low. But then, like yesterday, I rode in the Community World Series and I went smart trainer because I felt like that's, you're kind of obliged to do so. And the jewels there are kind of like 5% under, which is like makes you train hard. But then when I can see the element by computer screen telling me I'm doing 15 watts more, it's kind of a bit of a demotivation when you got guys sitting on your wheel and you're like, I wish I had these extra 15 watts. Just a few closing points. So obviously get a nice little discount with Wahoo products. So as I've said many times, the Kickr 5 is the best product that I've used. I absolutely love it and can't wait to be back on it. Kate's Kickr bike is awesome. I also have no issues with that at all. I've been using the bike computer, the Headwind lately, and they are fantastic products. And historically, when we've had issues with the Wahoo products, the support has been top notch. So the Kickr 6 I'm currently using is a fresh sent one because the 2023 Worlds Kickr 6 was faulty. We've got the new one. They'll probably send another one if I show them this data. But again, it could be the old bike at this stage. So not in a position to be able to say that until I get the new frame up and running. So hopefully it's within a few weeks. I know Kyle, who's been fantastic, has been in touch with the specialized sales reps and he's onto it. So I might sound like I'm impatient, but I'm just keen to get amongst it and get into the rest of the season and just focus on what I want to focus on rather than one clock telling me that it's 2:14 p.m. and the other one telling me that it's 2:20 p.m. So, have you had any issues with your hardware? What are your thoughts on all of this stuff, or do you just not worry about it at the level that you're specifically racing? Hopefully you found it enjoyable, and hopefully you found some of the footage to accompany this enjoyable of some of my setup at home. So thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next one.